So, welcome back to another episode of Sound Bites. I'm your host, Mark DeWolf. And in today's episode, we're focusing on some great women of the Nova Scotia wine industry. It's going to be my pleasure to introduce our audience to Beatrice Stutz, the CEO of Domaine de Grand Pré, Ashley McConnell-Gordon, Vice President of Benjamin Bridge, and Melanie Eelman is a co-owner and the cider maker and winemaker at Beausoleil Farmstead. So, first of all, welcome, of course, to everybody to the show, and thank you for taking the time to have a chat about the Nova Scotia wine industry. So, the Nova Scotia wine industry, I think it's fair to say, has never been so diverse as it is right now. And I think if I could say, look back 15 years ago, the list of women in working in the industry was more, we had Suzanne from St. Famille, Beatrice, you were just kind of coming in. Your mom, Ashley, there was, a real pioneer. And maybe Gina Haverstock, who was just kind of getting out of Psalm program and starting her journey in the early 2000s. But if you look at the list today, I chose the three of you because I obviously respect the three of you and I really like what you do. But we could have picked dozens of incredible women working in the Nova Scotia wine industry, from the Gina Lucketts of the world, from the Jocelyn and Rachels of Lightfoot and Wolfel, and really just a kind of almost endless list of women. So that's really encouraging, exciting, and I think brings a real vibrancy to our local industry. But when your paths start, in particular, there wasn't as many women in the industry, and you probably, I'm going to guess most of you didn't go through high school and your early part of university thinking I'm going to be in the Nova Scotia wine industry. So I think that's kind of an interesting story, is how did you get in? And I guess I will start with Ashley about your personal journey in the wine industry.
Sure. I think high school was more about how do I get out, right? As opposed to into it, because at the time, I would spend my summers picking rocks with my twin sister, our cousins, and some buddies from high school in the site that would become the first area of our part of the Gaspereau Valley that would be planted. But then wine was not on the mind for another, 7 to 8 years until late 2009, after I graduated law school and I was out in Calgary articling, when things changed pretty abruptly. I had the call that our mom, so my twin sister, she had just graduated with a Master of Architecture, and our mom was terminal with cancer. And at that point was really taking care of the operations of Benjamin Bridge. And so she passed within a few months. It was during harvest of 2009 that Devin and I stepped in. And 13 years later, we are still here, and wine is always on the mind.
And I should say, I had the great pleasure of, meeting your mom on a number of occasions, and she was a great inspiration to all of us that were kind of starting our journey in Nova Scotia wine at the time. And I certainly, I love being around her, and certainly I loved her commitment to making really good Sauvignon Blanc, because some of those her early Sauvignon Blancs she had were some of the most spectacular I've ever had from the province. So
we have great memories as well. So thanks for sharing that. But you're right, Sauvignon Blanc was her variety, and so we'll never give up on it, despite what Mother Nature may give us. We'll keep going. So,
and speaking of family, Beatrice, you kind of entered the unfamiliar waters of the wine industry, but also the unfamiliar waters of a new country. So maybe tell us a little bit, because your story and your family story is a bit interesting in how you got into the wine business.
Okay. Well, my dad decided to purchase the winery in '93. We grew up in Switzerland, and I went to college. I did a 4-year apprenticeship. I was in the pharmacy industry, and my mom actually also passed away from cancer, but in '92. And I think that was a bit of a catalyst for my dad to it was the time that he was just ready for something new. And when this opportunity came up, he just went for it. He did talk to Jürg and I my brother and myself, he did say, if I buy a winery, he said to my brother, not me, would you study winemaking and grape growing? And Jörg said, sure. And so, long story short, he ended up getting the winery, and then the next thing was, ooh, we could open a restaurant. And I'm like, sure. And so then this whole thing, I was just so excited from the get-go. I was all gung-ho for it, and when we told people in Switzerland that we were going to Canada to make wine, they're going like, what are you doing? So it was definitely a steep learning curve on so many aspects. And yes, I've just kind of entered the more winery side of things, but even just being a woman in the restaurant industry and having been around for so long, a lot has changed, and it was a lot of news for me, right? I couldn't even explain what a drawer was when they asked me, what do you want where behind the bar? I didn't know what the word drawer meant. So I did it all with my hands, and we still work the same way today. We still have, it was exciting.
Well, I think brave enough to enter the wine industry. Some might say crazy to do the wine industry and the restaurant
Yeah.
industry, two exceptionally hard. And then you branched into the in industry as well recently, and
Yes.
I had the great pleasure of staying there not too long ago, and just say what amazing job you did on the inn, because it is a great new piece to the market in the Wolfville kind of hospitality trade. It's a great place. Melanie, your story is a little different. It comes a little after, but you didn't exactly. Well, you're from Nova Scotia, but moved to Ontario, built a career, and then come
Yeah,
back.
so so grew up in rural Nova Scotia, grew up in Tatamagouche, grew up on a farm, and did the classic, like Ashley said, get through high school, go to university, and continued on with university. And I did my PhD in chemistry and postdoc at University of Ottawa. We lived in Ottawa for about 10 years. So that was the path. It was going to be science. It was going to be chemistry, and ended up having the opportunity to move back to Nova Scotia in 2012, which we jumped on, my family and I, when that opportunity presented itself, and landed in the Annapolis Valley and absolutely fell in love with the area. And from there, really started the journey into the industry via the cider world. So I was the head cider maker at the Annapolis Cider Company for their first 5 years. I started that in 2015. It opened in 2016, and really fell in love with just the whole making industry and how beautiful the fruits of the Annapolis Valley really are. And we found a really special property, my husband and I, in Port Williams in 2017. And bought it with the dream of planting an acreage of vineyard. We did 8 acres of grapes. And really sort of the journey into the winemaking really leads into that, right? And it's just always had the long-term vision of doing a winery. And in 2020, we took that big step forward, and we're like, we're going to start something. It's going to be small, the little winery that could in Port Williams, but it's been an absolutely fantastic journey, and I'm just loving it.
And it's a little winery that could, and a little winery that's making some pretty good wine too. I have to say that we had the chance to visit you, I guess in early November, some freakishly warm day in early November, and got to sample the Pinot and the Chard, and see all the amazing stuff you're doing, and really it's I have to say a real welcome addition to, because the quality speaks for itself.
Thank you.
So if we go back in time, and really not that long ago, as I mentioned earlier, there weren't that many women in leadership roles in the Nova Scotia wine industry, but everything has changed now. The three of you, obviously, Gina, and Gina, and do you feel like there's a union of the women of wine in Nova Scotia, and do you think you're inspiring more people and more women to enter the field, and I guess, do you feel like mentors, or you should be mentors? So, Ashley, we'll go with you first.
Well,
I'm
I'm
sorry.
going to look to Beatrice as well because we are newly board members with Wine Growers Nova Scotia. And I was doing the math this morning, and there's 6 of us, and 4 of us are women. And when you look back just a few years, that it was the flip. And so we are seeing that transformation at the industry level and within our own businesses as well. At Benjamin Bridge, we did the math, and we're 75% women across all departments. So on the farming side, the winemaking side, and beyond the more traditional areas of marketing and sales. So it's been great to see that transformation. And now we're really focused on greater diversity because I think those numbers speak for themselves, and that women are very present now in our local industry. And so for us, it's really about what does inclusion look like after that, and how do we bring more people in? So in terms of mentoring, I wouldn't say that we have an official program, but certainly there's people from all generations that are on our team, and we take pride in bringing folks along. And what's wonderful is that we are attracting people that are very purpose driven at Benjamin Bridge, and so there's a real alignment of values. And so they're often bringing in perspectives that we are the mentees and they are the mentors on many things. And so it's really very much a two-way street, but it has been exciting to see more and more young people enter our industry and actually intend to build a profession within our industry, as opposed to our 3 stories where we just kind of fell back in. They're actually here building careers, which is again a pretty fantastic transformation to see. So
totally. And it is, I think, probably for young women seeing people like yourselves that gives them the vision that I'm going into university and I'm going purposely I see the career path ahead of me. And I mean, I should say too, we're focusing today on you as women leaders in the industry. I think we can just briefly mention that diversity is more than just women. And I think there's great work being done by like Benjamin Bridge in terms of embracing cultural diversity, in terms of the work you could do with our First Nations, but also we see the Katuno family in Avondale Sky and seeing diversity in different ways, which is exciting too, that we're really embracing it in the industry. So, I mean, Beatrice, you have a bit of a different story. I mean, because of the way the Grand Pré has been built, it's a family, right? So, right from the beginning, you had definable roles, because you're a fan, but you have some great women working with you, and got to meet Jackie, and then obviously teach some of the in the restaurant, some of your staff too, and maybe talk about that in the context of Grand Pré.
Yeah, I mean, when I started in my role as restaurant manager, I guess, for my dad, who is, a proud Swiss man, having his daughter being the leader of the company was never kind of his vision. It was always supposed to be my brother. And I think just the fact that he accepted that you doesn't want that, and then that my dad kind of made the step and said, oh, okay, well, if you do. So it was a lot of back and forth, and it wasn't so easy to just step into it. Or it wasn't a given. I had to fight for it a little bit. And to me, it is extremely exciting and empowering to have so many women in leadership roles within the wine industry in Nova Scotia. I highly look up to Ashley, and I mean, Melanie, I always loved her cider. That's how I met you. And then, I really feel that I get along great with Jocelyn and Gina Haverstock and Gina Lockett. To me, it's really exciting. I don't feel a responsibility, but more so excitement when it comes to mentoring women in our industry. And I mean, Mark, you mentioned people that you've taught, like Tanya, for instance. She very much wants to learn. Like, she's such a sponge, and she wants to learn about the business. So having surrounded myself with many women who have that drive and who want to learn, I'm an open book. I would give them anything they want to know, even within other wineries. I have no, I think it helps all of our success if we share what works and what didn't work either, right? Sometimes we're too proud, or something works really well and we don't want to share it, but I'm past that. I'm like, whatever, what do you want to know? And I love sharing experiences and being supportive and working together. And to me, that's the only way to go.
Yeah. I would say too, like, I'm knowing you, Beatrice, that even if your father didn't see the vision of you as the CEO, I think we all, the rest of us could, because we know how strong and capable you are, and how passionate you've been about the industry. So we
I
all
don't
knew.
think that he didn't see it. I think that he just didn't want it. He just, it's a, Switzerland is very conservative, and it's very much a male dominant kind of upbringing. And so I think it was more that it wasn't that he didn't see it. It was just that in his ideal world, it should have been a different way. But it's all, I think he's good now. I think we got it figured
In my dialogue with him recently, he was happy enough to push anything to you. So
good.
So Melanie too, like, I mean, I'm sure you have opportunities to mentor and thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, I'm just like, we have such tremendous diversity, like you said, in our young industry here in the wine industry in Nova Scotia, and it's really, really exciting and exhilarating to have this great diversity. And speaking of Gina Haverstock, co-founder of the Annapolis Cider Company, like, I definitely consider her one of the greatest mentors for myself in terms of getting into the wine industry and learning so much from her about the winemaking and doing it in Nova Scotia in general, and the challenges that come with that. And we're really just really blessed in terms of all of the wonderful women that are involved in the wineries in Nova Scotia across the board. I think it just lends this great element of strength to the industry as a whole. I think it's really encouraging how many women continue to want to join the industry. Like, we're a pretty small place, and so don't really have a great big workforce or anything like that here. But we're really fortunate to bring in summer students in the summer to help us both in the viticulture and the vineyard side, and in the cellar work. And it's so, and the ones that I've had the opportunity to bring in, they've been women, and just really interested in the industry overall. And it's really encouraging to see that that so many women continue to want to become involved in the industry.
And we're talking today about you as women in the industry, but I mean, really, we should just be talking in some ways, just you're people of the industry, and you're just leaders of the industry. And speaking of the industry itself, we've kind of, I think in terms of a national context, certainly we've identify things like Tidal Bay and sparkling wines as the overall vision. I think it would maybe fair to say that, or at least currently, what the overall vision of the Nova Scotia industry is, which, so how important to you as individual wineries is to kind of align with that vision as a whole, but you also probably want to have a vision of yourself too. So, I mean, maybe Ashley, you could, some of us would have our own opinion of what the vision of Benjamin Bridge is, but we'll let you put it into words.
Okay, I will try. So absolutely, what we're doing at Benjamin Bridge is really quite consistent with what our industry is focusing on in terms of the traditional method sparklings and brisk aromatic whites. So my parents were the founders of Benjamin Bridge, and it was really their desire to figure out what we could do in terms of aligning our growing environment with our stylistic pursuits. And so we've stayed true to that, which is, our vision is to create region-defining sparkling wines. And for many years, while I was in place, overseeing the operations, it was still all about world-class traditional method sparklings. And what's been interesting, though, is the evolution over, I would say, the past 5 to 7 years, and kind of our language around why we're making wine. And in a way, we're, again, wine wasn't on my mind for so many years, and Benjamin Bridge is sort of evolving into a place that I'm even more excited about, which is the values behind the wine and how we're crafting the wine and how we're treating the people and the lands that we farm. And so our vision is really, there's still that competitiveness about quality, but we're even driven more now about creating, an equitable, inclusive, sustainable farm winery. And so very much, my parents, I think, I'm still aligned there, but, we really do see that how we're making it and the choices we make within our business are as equally important. And so it's a little shift, that almost wine is a vehicle for us to create community impact. And that's, something I'm really, really excited about.
Yeah, I guess, and I think that, I mean, for us on the outside, I guess that we've seen that evolution too in Benjamin Bridge, that, I think if I went back a decade or even 7 years, it was really just a pure focus on the highest quality traditional, and I guess you really have started to convert that language and talk about how you make the wine and why you make the wine and where you make the wine. And it's really started to come through in terms of everything you do. And I thought it was exciting to see that rosé project come out recently with the First Nations rosé project, and had the great chance of talking to your chef Kelty about some of the food stuff you were doing for the
Chef
event.
Kyla.
Sorry. Yes, you have too many K people there.
At Benjamin Bridge, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yes, no, and Kyla has been such an important part of that allyship with Blues Cap First Nation, and so we are really proud of that collaboration, and so transparency is also a really important part of what we're doing at Benjamin Bridge as well. And I love how Beatrice too is saying, I'm not afraid to share mistakes, and I'm not afraid to share mistakes, and so opening things up, I think, is something we're seeing at an industry level. Again, with women working collaboratively, I guess there's just not this, I'm going to call it an ego in the way of actually sharing, maybe what's going on, what's working, what's not working. And so anyway, just had to, echo Beatrice on that point, that it's been really helpful to have open and candid conversations as well.
Yeah, and I think to Beatrice, I think, I always have my own opinions on what I perceive Grand Pré to be, and I think, I think you guys, I think I teach a lot in my classes about how important it was for Hans Peter and your family when you came over, that you came at a very critical time when maybe the industry was suffering from image issues, maybe the qualitative issues were and to the credit of your father and you and Jörg, that you kind of, I would say, kind of raised that bar and probably helped inspire people like Jerry and Dara that quality is possible in Nova Scotia wine industry. Now, I think of you as, really taking our local varietals and really bringing to the best that they can be. But maybe you talk about what you see as the vision of Domaine de Grand Pré and how you fit in the ecosystem here.
Well, I think very much, I remember my dad always said earlier on, when he talked about L'Acadie and all the hybrids that we were growing, that, we don't need to come to Nova Scotia to grow Chardonnay and all these vinifera's. We need to grow what grows best in our climate. And at the time, it certainly wasn't Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. And over time, that has obviously changed, as you all know. But, it was always what I learned from my dad too. And I always had that thinking, but he was such an advocate for it, that we have to work together as a group, as an industry, and supporting an overall vision is crucial and important. We're so much stronger as a group when we're aligned, and you just have a bigger voice if you're collaborating on certain things. Now, when it comes to Grand Pré, I always felt that we were kind of, I always felt very grounded. Over the years, we added a lot of products and we were all over the place a bit. And I think very much right now, we're just trying to go back to the roots, kind of where we started, not going backwards, but just settling back down, trying to produce wines that really, our style is very much a reflection of who we are. Jörg's winemaking style is so clean. He kind of is trying to keep the integrity of the grapes. He doesn't mess with it. I love that about the style, and it's classic and clean. So, and I think that's very much where we are. Of course, as we are kind of growing out of our space and we're talking, what do we do next? When you talk expansions or anything, the sustainability piece is first or top of mind, or, putting a new vineyard in, all the new farming practices. That certainly is also top of mind. We're trying to make sure we go along with what people are asking for. It's always been a big thing for me. If people asking for something, then you should give it to them, because that's what they want. Give them what they want. And so just staying aligned with all that and trying to stay on top of it, and, seeing what the neighbors are doing, not to copy them, but to see how they're implementing these new challenges, and, learn from each other.
And speaking of neighbors, well, you're a 10 or 15-minute drive away, but Melanie is certainly, and Beausoleil is certainly, you have your own kind of vision, and I think, like I think it's revolutionary in its own way, and maybe slightly, controversial in some of the things you might do. But I also think that, wow, how the wine world has changed in the last 25 years. And I think 25 years ago, if I went to my solemn friends around the world and brought them a bottle of Foch or a hybrid of any kind, I think, they would have, no, thank you. But, we've seen that eliminated. That, I think when I was actually at Grand Pré one time, we had David Birot, who was the number one sommelier in France at the time, and he was drinking a 1999 Foch Reserve from Grand Pré, and I was watching this Frenchman put his nose in the glass and going, and it was, and so we've seen change in terms of perception of what is possible, what, different ways of thinking about what is great wine, talking not so much about, it has to be Chardonnay, or acceptance of it, to Ashley's point about putting more emphasis on how too. So we've seen a real change in the mentality of the wine drinker over the last 20 years. And I think I loved a couple of things you were doing, and Melanie, and maybe tell the world what you're doing, because I think some of I thought it was so interesting what, some of if you, in the context of a modern way of thinking about wine.
Yeah, and I think that I think one of the biggest strengths of being a really young region is that you have a little bit more flexibility in what you're doing, and I think that that's really key, is staying flexible and innovative, and really, my vision here at Beausoleil, it's like the focus is on small lot artisanal wines, and exploring each vintage as it comes into fruition, and what is possible from that vintage. And so it's not necessarily tying yourself to a particular wine style. It's what's the wine style that makes sense for that vision. And that's really, how I'd like to operate going forward, and everything. But a key component of what we really do here at Beausoleil is we're doing this new exploration of a new category that's really emerging in regions in North America, where they have apples and grapes growing side by side. And they're called viniciders, or cider and wine blends. And we are really sort of the first ones in Nova Scotia, and I really do hope that more and more really starts cropping up of people who are really focusing on this. And it's really, taking our incredibly aromatic apple varieties that we do here in the Annapolis Valley, and blending it with our very special cool climate wines that have that bright acidity and that tannin component, and really coming up with something that's fresh and approachable, and really just fun, and people are looking for things that are different and unique and defining. And I'm really enjoying the enthusiasm that people are displaying for the cider and wine blends, for sure. And how creative and innovative you can be with them by introducing, you're exploring new flavor and aromatic profiles by combining different wines with different apple varieties, but also the freedom to infuse fresh and new flavors that people don't necessarily associate with either category. So
Yeah, and admittedly, I grew up in my wine education during an era of unadulteration, and but ultimately, you have to come back to the end answer is how does, what's the end product, like, and does,
Mhm.
and I guess that's, it's, I know I was there and I was very excited about what you were doing. And I think, if we truly want to, we can't be limited by these historic conceptions of what is I mean, and you see it in the wine world all the time, that what is good now may not be what people perceive to be great 20 years. And so I think if you just concentrate on the end product, then you're in great place. So it is the holiday season. So just to kind of close out, because we had a great discussion, but wine is about enjoying our friends and family with the glass. So I'm gonna end this off with each of you of what are you gonna be serving at Christmas dinner, and I want you to pick one of your own and one of somebody else's. So Ashley, you're on the spot.
Oh, lucky me. Okay, I
Yeah.
get to go first. All right. So I'm picking something Benjamin Bridge, it's got to be the NV Brut. It is my dad's go-to, so I'll make him really happy at Christmas dinner. And it's just a great wine to enjoy throughout the entire evening. Now, if I'm going to choose outside of Benjamin Bridge, I have to say, although we've been talking about how innovation is important for the future, and that Chardonnay wasn't necessarily where we were, our strength in Nova Scotia originally, I have to pick, because I'm very excited to try the small lot Chardonnay from Grand Pré. Or Melanie, I'm seeing that you have a Chardonnay as well. So I'm going to have turkey dinner, and I think I'm going to be pairing it with some Chardonnays, including one from Gina Luckett as well. So nice. Is that okay? I'm going to choose
That is
three
perfectly fine. Say more.
Awesome.
Actually.
Or Riesling, or the Riesling. I love, Grand Pré. I love their Rieslings, and would love to grab a sparkling Riesling as well. So I'm very greedy. I'm just going to go for many wines.
You're good for the neighborhood. That's what you are.
Kidding, yeah. Okay, and say that small lot Chardonnay is very good. I was at the Le Caveau, which recently.
I love the label on it too.
Which and it's beautiful label. And I have to say, just one point out, all the great service at Le Caveau. I mean, it was actually my favorite restaurant experience of the year, admittedly, and it was awesome. So you. Beatrice, what's your point?
Well, funny, I kind of thought about this, and I'm absolutely in love with our unoaked Chardonnay right now. So that would be what I would have. It's just such a star. Poor Ortega is taking a bit of a back seat now. But so our unoaked Chardonnay is so fresh and crisp. I just love it. And then I'm totally going outside of the country. I apologize. But I'm a sucker for Spanish, Italian, and Oregon wine. So any of those reds, I'm sure, will come across our dinner table at some point. But having said that, we usually have, it's funny, any family dinners that we get together, usually Jörg has a Nova Scotia product that he picked up that he wants all of us to try. And so we all do the same. So there will be a variety of Nova Scotia, just different things, sparklings and some still, and then definitely something international as well.
Nice. And Melanie.
Well, I think a go-to for our dinner and at Christmas would definitely be our 2021 Pinot Noir, which I'm immensely proud of. And honestly, it's probably not going to be limited just to that. We're going to be enjoying the holiday season very much with I'm sure a lot of wines and a lot of our cider and wines. But in terms of going outside of our little plot here at Beausoleil and enjoying others from the region, we're really excited to get together with friends. We've planned a horizontal Pinot Noir tasting, if you will, in terms of Pinots that are cropping up. Really exciting time with all the various wineries and doing a horizontal tasting of all of them. And I think that it's a really exciting time in Nova Scotia right now that we can do these beautiful vinifera varieties and stay true to really what they are and the essence of them, and do it in our own way with our own spin on it. And just really excited to. I've already sampled a couple of them, and I'm really excited. I've enjoyed every single one of them. Benjamin Bridge, 2020 and the 2021. I had a sneak taste of as well.
We're proud of that. Thank you.
One is fantastic, and so many others are doing it. Blomidon and on all of those. So
yeah, well, I can legitimately say that because I love the pick of the non-vintage brut from. I can't think of a sparkling wine that's better value than that wine. I mean, and we're talking globally, like that's a great value product. And I make a magazine for the International Sommelier Association, and I'm pleased to say, which I've mentioned Benjamin Bridge in a few times, but I'm pleased to say this issue talking about my Christmas dinner, my two picks were Grand Pré Riesling and Melanie's Pinot Noir. So we'll have
Thank
that
you.
coming out. We'll have that coming out to the International Sommelier Association in a couple of weeks. But yeah, I think so. I am so proud of everything that's being done here in Nova Scotia. I think we're really getting back to driving quality, and hopefully we'll see there's a lot of economics at play to getting it outside of our provincial borders, but thanks to people like yourselves, I think we're moving in the right direction. So just want to say thank you for taking the time to do this interview, and keep up the great work.
Thank you, everybody.
thank
Thank you
you
so much.